It's loading.
It's live. Did you want me to follow along the live on my phone in case people are commenting?
Yes, I do the same. Hello, everybody. I am live. Welcome to Christine Talks. To Sara Elice today, our somatic sex and relationship coach and educator. I would love to let her herself and tell us a little bit about the work she is doing before we dive deeper into all the questions I do have and whatever else wants to come through in our conversation today. Hello, Sara, and welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's nice that we finally got to go live. I know this has been a couple of weeks in the planning, so yeah, it's good to be here. So yeah, I'm a somatic sex and relationship coach who lives locally on the Sunshine Coast, and I've been working in this field for about 4 years now. But yeah, I was in like my mid-20s, so I'm almost in my mid-30s now. So about 7, 8 years ago, I discovered sort of erotic embodiment, sacred sexuality work, and that's sort of how I got on this path. And yeah, even at that time, when I discovered this, I realized that this was something that I needed to journey, not only for like my personal journey and healing, but I knew straight away it was like this soul calling. But as you can imagine, it's a pretty edgy thing to come out to your family and your friends that you want to be a sex coach.
Yeah.
So it took me a couple of years to sort of, like explore it on my own. And then I started studying holistic counseling and some like energy healing and spiritual sort of modalities. And then, in 2018, I finally studied to become a Kundalini dance facilitator. And that's how I started sharing this work. So since 2018, I've been, studying like different things like neo-tantra, tantric bodywork, feminine arts, intimacy coaching. And I've facilitated over 100 in-person events since 2018 as well. And ran lots of different online programs and created online courses, and now I coach people one-on-one and I coach couples, and right now I'm in the transition of motherhood, and so my work is sort of slowly finishing up for the time being, but my focus has been on supporting busy women and mamas to come into their body and to reclaim their pleasure and create healthier intimacy and harmonious relationships with men.
Yeah, I love that. I love how because I've known you a little bit, but just even in that semi-short of time I've known you, you have evolved so much, because you've also birthed the Enrapture Pleasure temples as well that are now going around on the Sunshine Coast. And I love actually where you are at right now, and I want to dive into that a little bit, because I'm obviously a busy mom and many of my followers are busy parents as well. And I have lately come around polarity, right? And it's like whatever it is, but it's in that polarity work, what they are teaching is to just completely drop the self-pleasure and masturbation in that sort of way, right? To actually in that way create more intimacy and connection with your partner and polarity. So now I'm wondering, actually, I would love to hear your insights around that, because as far as I understand, giving to yourself and meeting your own needs is actually really important in creating what it is that you want, right? So I'm wondering what your insight is on this.
Yeah, there's a lot of different polarity coaches and theories out there that I don't really 100% resonate with, to be honest. And that's the first I've heard of that. But that's definitely not something that I resonate with. I think it depends on the way you look and relate to self-pleasure. So for me, masturbation and self-pleasure, they're a little different. So masturbation is, more genital focused. It's generally more like friction based, and the goal is orgasm, is climax. Yeah. Whereas the way that I explore self-pleasure is through just pleasuring my body. Yeah. And that could look like dancing and moving energy and touching myself and just exploring where it feels good on my body and what feels alive and giving that expression. Or it could look like me starting off with this beautiful self massage, sensual massage, and then maybe, you know, I'll end up on the floor crying because all of this emotion comes up. So for me, it's about letting go of that goal and really just following your pleasure and trying to ignite some desire and eros in your body and letting that magic unfold and take you where it needs to take you. And I think this is really important because with busy people, especially parents, you know, they can get really consumed with meeting other people's needs, aka their kids, that they forget about, and they stop prioritizing their own needs and desires. And yeah, I think that it's really common, and essentially, especially sexually, you know, it tends to, when a couple has a baby, then there's already a bit of a break from sex, you know, because women can't have sex straight away, and then they're tired and they're busy, and this is something that slowly just starts to they become further and further away, like intimately, on an intimate sexual level. And I think that, you know, more people need to realize that sex in a long-term partnership, it will change, it will ebb and flow, and it is just like a relationship. It's something that we need to continuously work on. And our relationship to sex with another begins with our relationship to sex with ourselves. And I don't mean that, you know, you can't have a good sex life if you're not into self-pleasure. I mean, you know, are you like meeting your own needs? Are you, and pleasure extends far beyond the bedroom, right? I'm not talking about needing to give yourself an orgasm every week. I'm talking about, you know, like being present with the pleasures of life. Like, you know, when you eat your meal, rather than just scoffing it down, can you slow down? Can you be with it? Can you taste it in your mouth? It's like, you know, when you hang out the washing, can you put on some music and dance and be in your body while you do that? It's like finding the simple pleasures in all of the, like, in life, in the mundane tasks of life as well.
Yeah, I really love that. And I it's almost like we're bringing the pleasure into everyday life, right? I've reflected on this yesterday as I sat there and I thought, I have pleasure, for example, sometimes playing with my child or doing other things during the day. And then I thought, I just doing the dishes. And I thought, you could just bring the pleasure into doing the dishes, right? And just being more present as you do this. Or yeah, that is so true.
Totally.
It's like a real getting out of your head back into your body journey. And it thought it was a little bit like, you know how some couples also schedule in time for intimacy? So I'm wondering if you, as a busy mom, because what you're doing, I really love it, because it's not like we're scheduling time to drop in. You're really bringing it into everyday life, right? That pleasure and the openness.
I also think that it's really important to schedule in intimacy with our partner, because as much as it can feel really unsexy, because, you know, desire really thrives with spontaneity, but we can't rely on spontaneity to feel a long-term sex life. We have to create time for it. Yeah, we have to put aside time. And, you know, and when I talk about this, I talk about scheduling in intimacy. I have a lot of people be like, yeah, but sometimes I don't feel like having sex when we've scheduled it in. And yeah, my answer usually is like, you can't wait until two people are completely turned on and ready to have sex. And if you rely on that, you're not going to have sex a lot, right? Because there's a lot of things that take us away from that desire to make love from our partner. And it's just, you could make excuses forever and a day around why you don't want to have sex. But truthfully, I think that a lot of people, that, you know, they're stressed, they're busy, their body's in contraction, they don't feel fully safe and relaxed, so naturally sort of desire isn't flowing. But I think that if we are to tune in with our body, then we can we can ask our body and we can figure out what our body actually needs to open to that desire to have sex.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. It really does make sense. What comes through for me is now like I'm now a single mom, right? And you do come up these desires, but then there's so many needs as well. On I guess so is there something that you could recommend for people in our situation where we don't have a partner that we could ask for our needs to be met, like for this touch or connection or the conversations even you have during the day or at the end of the day?
I think, yeah, it's really important to like give that to yourself,
Mm.
tuning into that desire of like, oh, I really want some connection and intimacy. And that's essentially generally what we're craving when we do want sex. So we can give that to ourselves. We can go and run a bath. We can, put the kids to bed and we can run a bath. We can light some candles. We can give ourselves some like beautiful touch and intimacy and self-pleasure. And I think also, especially for single parents, I'll speak to single mums as well, because I'm a woman, so it's a bit easier. But sorry, I just lost my headphone. But I think having friends where we can have platonic intimacy and sensual, touch is really important as well.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really feel for men, because I guess culturally it's not as acceptable for men to have platonic touch with their friends, whereas it's really normal for women to have cuddles. Well, not always, but I think generally it's more socially acceptable for women to have platonic touch with with others than it is men. So yeah, finding some other single moms or girlfriends that are happy to come around and give you a cuddle and listen to you vent and validate you and meet those needs that you're craving to be met in another.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And it does resonate because there's probably so many things that come through. There's probably a way to manifest a partner into your life, right? Because you are manifesting like with the help of your sexuality as well, aren't you?
Yeah. So sex isn't just an action, it's also an energy. And it's the energy of creation, right? Like if you think about our sex center, which is for a woman, it's like our yoni and our womb. Like this is where we birth a child. And the thing that like first ignites the creation of a child is that eros, our erotic energy, our arousal. So this is a potent creation energy, and when we're not using it to create babies and humans, we can use it to create other things. So there is an element of being able to, I guess, manifest and attract with this energy. But also I think the one thing that is lacking when people are sort of talking about sex magic is the process before manifesting and attracting and creating, which is like this transformation and this alchemy. And this is a big part of the work I share. I've got a podcast called Love, Sex, and Alchemy. And I'm forever talking about sexual alchemy. I'm creating a course at the moment called Erotic Alchemy. And so it's essentially like, how can we use this potent life force creation energy that is known as erotic energy or sexual energy? How can we use it to, yes, create the life of our dreams, but also to transform these shadows and traumas and old belief patterns and emotions? And because that's the reason we don't have what we want, right? Is because of the fear, because of the trauma, because our unconscious is self-sabotaging our life. And so this is why, making a vision board or making some crystal grids or just using affirmations to manifest like that. I'm not shitting on that, by the way, like that's all really powerful work. But if we're focusing on that without actually focusing on doing the work and looking at our shadows and beliefs and the reasons why we don't have that, then you can do all of the vision boards you want, but it's not just going to like magically come into your life unless you look at the reasons why you don't feel safe to have that.
Yes, I find that beautiful because I've written so many lists about an ideal partner, right? But it's still, I still come across like, fear of commitment, fear of intimacy, fear of this and that. And I find it really beautiful. And I would love to actually share some of your podcasts in here as well for people to watch, even if we are doing that after the Zoom. But I love how you talk about, integrating all the shadows, the traumas, because I have many people that are following as well that are aware of them coming across the trauma, right? And they're not always sure how to deal with it and how to drop into it and still connect with their partner. Because often we know we have the desire for something, but then we can't go there either. And we go, what do we do about this?
Are you speaking more like sexually or just in general, like in an intimate partnership, there'll be fears and things come up which sort of prevent us from opening up on an intimate level, like not necessarily sexual, or do you want me to speak more to the physical sexual intimacy?
Yeah, more the physical sexual intimacy. Yeah.
Okay. So can I ask, when you have heard these stories or, questions from people, are they talking about things like, there's shame coming up in their body, and old stories and old patterns that are holding them back? So you mean?
Yes, I feel like usually, because there's a lot of people that have experienced trauma or this like narcissistic abuse where there's a lot of fear and those memories in their bodies. So when they then want to connect with a new partner that they do feel safe with, yeah, they come across these past experiences, things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty normal. So sex brings us into our body. Yeah. I mean, you can stay in your mind if you want, and there's a lot of people that stay in their mind because they have performance anxiety or they can't let go of thinking about the 101 tasks on their to-do list. And these people are probably going to really struggle with sex. They're not going to feel pleasure. They might struggle to orgasm, but ultimately, sex is an embodied meditation because it takes us out of our head and it ignites the different sensations in our body. But what is also in our body is not just pleasurable sensations, it's also painful sensations, right? Because trauma imprints not only on the mind, but it actually is stored in the body. So on a cellular level, our cells are holding on to the memory of trauma. And so anything that brings us into our body has the potential for us to come across one of these like holdings of trauma and memories. So this is why, sex is so healing as well, because it's beautiful, because it brings us into the body. And not only is this sexual energy like our chemical energy, so it can, as it moves through our body, as it produces, and especially if we're intentionally moving this sexual energy through our body, there's a very good chance it's going to dislodge some of these old stored trauma memories. And so how do we deal with that is probably what's going to happen when something comes up is you're going to go into contraction and you're going to go into some sort of like trauma response or fear response. So perhaps perhaps you contract and, you just push your partner away and you go into a bit of a flight response. So this like fight, flight, freeze, and fawn are the general trauma responses. And so maybe you push them away and you shut down. And that could also be like a freeze response as well, where you completely just disassociate from your body and just go into full collapse and shut down. And a fawn response, or so fight response is, obviously you get defensive and you probably start blaming it on them, like, oh, you hurt me, or you've done something that made me feel uncomfortable. Yeah. And you sort of want to like argue. And then a fawn response is like a people pleaser response. So this is one of those trauma responses that not as many people know about. It's more of a recently coined term by Peter Walker, but essentially it's when we bypass the other responses and we go into this place where we're just trying to appease the other, because that's how we create safety. Okay, so if I do what they want, or if I just give them exactly what they want, or I go along with everything, then I will be safe. And that's a really common one that gets activated for women, especially in intimate, like sexual intimate situations. So we've just got to, one, like do the work to recognize, like, you know, what is happening to you on a body level. And so like when your trauma comes up, how is that expressed? And opening up a conversation with your partner. Yeah, it's like, hey, this has happened to me in the past. Sometimes when we have sex, or when you ask to have sex, or even sex is on the table, I go into these old patterns. What I've been noticing is, and in my learnings, is maybe I go into a bit of a fawn response, or I go into a freeze response. And this is how you can support me when I go into that. So this is one, how you can identify that I've gone into one of these fear responses. So maybe I'm like looking around the room and I'm not very present, you know, like could be like a freeze response, right? Or you stop making sound and you just sort of like you go very still. So giving your partner some some tips on how they can recognize that you're in a trauma response, and then telling them what you need to be able to come out of that and come back into safety. So for me, and I mean, obviously, depending on what level of trauma you've experienced, if it's a major trauma, if it's major sexual trauma, then 100% I recommend seeing a trauma therapist and working on that, because you're never going to be able to have a healthy relationship to your own body and to your own sexuality, or with a partner, if you're holding major trauma still. If it's trauma that you're working through, or just minor trauma, like just you can actually use those situations to be able to move through it on your own. Like, I remember when I was finally in a safe relationship for the first time, with a man that, you know, like, it was a very healthy dynamic, and this was about 4 or 5 years ago now. And because I felt so safe with him, and I was starting to explore this, like, sexual alchemy and moving sexual energy through my body, there was many a times where trauma would come up. And so I would ask him for what I need. So sometimes that would look like, hey, can you just slow down for a minute? Or can we just pause and just breathe together? Yeah. Because what would happen is there would just be this urge for me to push him off. Maybe there'd be a feeling of, like, you know, not pain, but uncomfortability. But generally it was more like this emotional feeling of, like, I'm not safe, I need to stop and push him away. And because I knew that I was safe, I could remind my body that it was safe, and I could tune in with what my body needed, and I could make a request for that. And then we could continue going, and I could breathe my body open through this desire to contract and stay small. And that's when generally I would end up having a really amazing cosmic orgasm, and often I would end up crying or moving through some emotion in my body afterward. And it actually got to the stage, like, I ended up breaking up with that partner, and I was single for 2 years before I met my current partner. And in that time where I was single, I was sexually exploring with a lot of different men, and relating in more poly ways. And before I would open up intimately and sexually with a partner, I would let them know, hey, sometimes during sex I might cry, or emotions may move through me, and, you know, I don't take it personally if it does, and this is how I need, you know, this is how I would really love you to respond or hold me if that happens. So I would sort of like preface that before I had sex, because it started happening so often.
I find that really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, because there is a lot of stigmatism around what sex needs to look like, or how it should look, or right. Often we don't even assume that emotions can come up and we can cry, or we allow ourselves to move through that because we need to be a certain way, or right. So this is like, really just honoring where you were at as well, right? And I love that you also bring it out of the bedroom, because I feel like I can remember you actually saying that to me once. So I noticed that I would come up through stuff when I was intimate with someone, and to just take the conversation outside of the bedroom where I felt safe and sort of a more calmer space, rather than being right in it, was just so much easier as well to then navigate and go from there. And then it's easier too, I find, when you are physically active, or like physically, what do you call it, intimate with someone, it's easier to speak up as well, and to just stop or ask for what it is that you need. Yeah, there's a lot of work.
So I think there's a lot of women that sort of beat themselves up because they're like, oh, like I went too far again, or I did that,
Yeah.
I didn't speak up for what I desired. And, you know, it's actually really common for women to lose their ability to be able to communicate during sex. It's really, really common because our nervous system can easily go into that freeze response. So yeah, like I think that's what I was saying to you is like start practicing speaking about what you desire outside of the bedroom. Because if you really desire to set boundaries, speak about your needs and desires outside of the bedroom, then it's going to be really hard once you get in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this should be normalized conversation before we make love anyway, you know, especially with a new partner. Like, I think I was doing some filming for my course yesterday around somatic consent, and I was speaking to the fact that because sex is still so taboo in our society, that there's a lack of healthy conversations around sex. And a lot of the time we're not talking about what we need, desire, what our boundaries are, what our fantasies are, what we want this to mean, sexual health, and all of these things that are actually like really important and in creating safety for us to be able to open up sexually. Yeah, a lot of these conversations aren't happening, and they're not demonstrated to us. You know, we haven't learned how to have these conversations, and they're definitely lacking from porn. I don't think I've ever watched a porn where there was like that, where there was a conversation around consent before the act.
Or like even women opening up and asking for what it is that what they need. It feels like there's a lot of performing happening. And I also feel like saying now, even as women, there's often a shutdown, right? And if we feel shut down, or if we have been shut down as kids, or at some point in our lives, we tend to do that to ourselves and just keep going. But and the other thing is when someone I first studied, you know, light working from, and she's enlightened, and she was having a podcast as well about sexuality. I thought, wow, now they're going to tell us about what kind of positions to do, or what. I have these like weird expectations around what people talk about when they say they talk about sexuality. And then it's actually not even about that, right? There's so much more deeper pleasure and intimacy you can experience just from feeling safe and opening up and moving through all those feelings with someone else that we not
Totally. And like that's what we need as women, you know, like, and this is where men and women are a little different. Like I think all humans, we need to feel safe to be able to fully open to another being, for sure. But generally women, especially, their positive pole, like how their sex opens is through their senses and through their heart. So we really need to feel met on a heart level, on an emotional level, on like we need to feel like a heart connection, or that it's safe to be in our heart and to be in our softness and innocence for our sex to fully open. And I don't mean like that, you know, of course you could get a vibrator and, like, you know, without any foreplay, without igniting your senses, and put it straight on your clit, and you could probably get yourself to climax. But when it comes to making love with another person, you're not going to experience the full potential of your sexuality if you're rushing and straight, like rushing to the sex center, rushing to genital touch, to friction based, to fast penetration. Women need a little bit more time to open up. Most women actually need about 20 minutes of foreplay, of like, you know, of touching their body, of awakening their senses, of kissing, of cuddling, of connection, for them to feel safe enough to fully open, and for their yoni to be wet enough to be entered
and ready. And then I feel like also the worthiness of having needs, of having them being met, of slowing it down, you know, of really opening up and receiving too. There's a lot of like, no, you know, just cool, quickly or whatever. Like, no, you're worthy actually of slowing it down and just voicing it and having
vulnerable. It's
it.
vulnerable to receive.
Very vulnerable.
So a lot and a lot of women, it's too vulnerable, so they'll just give to get. They'll give to receive. Because they don't want to be fully seen. It's scary, and it's scary to ask what we want and have that, you know, be open to that.
That's where it's so I feel like when I think about the whole women rising generally in the world right now, that's such an important topic to be aware of as well, and to be okay with, and to be okay to talk about it as well, and to
Yeah.
receive the support.
And so men are a little different, just coming
Mm,
back to that. Like, so a
yeah.
woman's arousal comes from the outside in, whereas a man's arousal sort of ignites in his cock, in his sex center. And so, that's why often men will rush to touch the clit, or will rush to penetration, is because they're just doing what they desire. Yeah. So
Mm.
a man's arousal will awaken in his cock, and then it'll spread out through his body. Yeah. Whereas women need that a little bit more time to come in.
So they would literally desire to like, so just to clarify this, they would literally like desire, that's an energetic thing, right? Where they have it like in their genital first. It doesn't mean they want to be like touched there straight away or something. Is that, or is that what?
I'm not saying that men don't like foreplay, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
that, like when they get aroused, like they get a hard cock. Like that's, it's
Yes,
just
we
like
don't get
it's
wet straight away.
instant here.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, whereas it takes time for us to open. It takes time
Mm.
for us to get wet. Whereas like, when I
Now I get it.
when I give like a devotional massage to my man, I don't, spend 20 minutes pleasuring his body and then go to his cock. I go straight to his cock and I start massaging his cock, and then I touch his body. I spread his arousal around his body. Yeah, but
Mm.
I'm igniting this arousal, and then I'm bringing him into his senses. Yeah.
Mm.
And that's like more obviously an erotic massage. But with women, if we went straight to the clit, it's like almost like it's too
Yeah.
much, or straight to the nipples or something. It's like, oh, I wasn't ready for that. Like we need a little bit slower. Yeah, we need to
Mm.
like awaken
Totally.
all of our senses. We need to feel like met and safe to be able to fully open to our sexual potential. Yeah.
Which is beautiful, because when I think about the polarity work I mentioned earlier, men really want to give. So if they do feel the arousal and women are not quite there, but they are able to open up and say, this is what I need, or this is right, they are actually quite happy to give that, because they're also, feel devotion and pleasure, I guess, in the way of giving to women as well. So although we are so different, it feels like it does dance, right? We do dance with each other as long as we know what we need and can voice that, I guess.
Totally. Men definitely want to provide. And, men have this thing going on too, where it's like, that they have like the performance anxiety, and that they really want to like pleasure their
Mm,
woman, So, and that's the thing, like women are just not asking for what they need or what they want, and they're just sort of like more shut down to sex, because there can be this clash in desires. But yeah, I'm sure if you asked your man for an erotic massage and told him how you like to be touched or what your body's needing, like I'm sure he would be open to giving you that, especially if you're, if it's going to give you pleasure. Because
mm,
what happens is, because of these differences, we're rushing into sex too soon when women aren't ready for sex. They're not ready for penetrative sex. And then, I think the average man only lasts like 7 to 10 minutes or something like that. And that's like a woman's like, she's not even wet enough in that time. And so they're just putting on lube and getting going. And it's probably rare that a woman is going to reach orgasm in that amount of time. But if you spent 20 minutes prior to that, or even an hour, just exploring sexual energy and exploring each other's body, and, licking and touching and doing all the things all over the body, and there's already so much arousal, then yeah, it's more likely that a woman's going to reach climax, even though that shouldn't be the goal. But obviously there's nothing wrong with orgasm, and it's nice to connect in sex and also reach like climax together. There's something pretty magical about it.
mm. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorites too. Now, so many of my experiences just flashed through my eyes, because I had I had a man that I was just kissing, and I read about this beforehand in an article, right? That you can have orgasms just from kissing. Like, I want that. And then it just worked out that it happened to me. But in that experience as well, I experienced a time where he gave me a lot of sensual touch and pleasure and everything beforehand, before we actually got to the kissing. So I'm wondering if that was actually, really helping to open up and to feel that safety and the trust and everything. And I didn't plan to have an orgasm while kissing, but it just happened. So yeah, that was really insightful. I never really realized that before I just heard you speak about all of this.
Yeah, that definitely would have helped. I think if you just went straight to kissing, you probably wouldn't have orgasmed.
Yeah.
I love that. And obviously it sounds like there was like a quite an energetic match.
Yes,
Like
it
I
did
think,
feel right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
When there's an energy, you can feel it. And I'm quite an energetic lover as well, and like an energetic and essential lover. And so is my partner. And so yeah, like it's easy to be able to get those, like the energy flowing, the kundalini flowing, because it's just igniting with his as well.
He was also very in tune, so he could somehow, I don't know if it was his intuition, but he could feel to slow down, and he would just slow down. Yeah, it was just beautiful. Whereas actually I was like this orgasmic wave already as it was very sensual. And that also reminds me, as you speak about energetics, I was sharing in my group yesterday about erotic blueprints as well, that you can find out your erotic blueprints too. And I'm actually a shapeshifter, so I'm a little bit of everything.
I love that.
And I found
Great.
that really helpful, just in understanding. I'm like, oh, well, so I don't have to actually be extra kinky like I see other people enjoying themselves. It's normal for me to just go to that degree, but also like all the other things, like I find that it gave me a little bit of reassurance, I guess. Yeah. To where I'm at.
Yeah. I think it's sort of like learning, your love language. It's sort of like learning the language of your sex. So yeah, I definitely feel like it's worth doing the quiz and finding out your type and exploring that. Yeah.
And I also wanted to touch on somatic, because you're a somatic sex educator, right? And I was wondering, I would like to speak about that. So what does that mean? What does that look like? There's like certain exercises or tools that, especially when it comes to somatic.
Yeah, so somatic, just like soma is the body. So anything that says like somatic therapy, it's body-based therapy. Yeah, so most things, like most sort of usual talk therapy, like psychology and counseling, it's more just based on the mind. Unless they do take you through practices, but yeah, a somatic therapist is aware of the body and how trauma imprints and affects the body, and is trying to take their clients from a journey from living here back into here and back into the body. So yeah, the reason I call myself a somatic sex and relationship coach and educator is because I'm very big on embodiment work. And as I've already mentioned, trauma is stored in the body. So we need to come into our body to heal from the past, and to be able to create a healthier relationship with our body, our sex, and intimately with others as well. So yeah, there's lots of different tools, but the real like basic tools of embodiment is breath, sound, movement, and touch. And any combination of them is really going to drop you into your body, and has the potential for you to explore some of this contraction and holding and stuck emotional energy that we hold in our body. And for me, like, my work is like it's a full body awakening.
I love that, because so much when we listen to podcasts or we learn a new thing, it gets stuck in our head and we know, but then it's like okay, let's do this and actually practice. That alone sometimes brings us through the resistance or past wounds, or like some sort of carefully set distorted beliefs that we had, where we think love is sex or whatever, right? But once we clear all of that, I feel like, yeah, then you do become embodied, and it's easier to, yeah, live really,
Mhm.
right? What you're practicing and preaching.
Yeah, totally. And it's all about like this work is very much like it's experiential. It's not something that we can just learn on a
Mm,
logical level. It's something we need to experience, especially like embodied or conscious sexuality. This is something that we feel and experience. So yeah, using these tools in whatever way that looks. Sometimes, this morning I was super tired, and I sometimes I'll like dance and move and breathe in the yard. And this morning I just wanted to sit there and just connect with my body and bring a little bit of gentle touch, and really just intentionally draw my breath into my body.
mm.
And yeah, sometimes that might look like me fully shaking my body or having a dance. And yeah, so yeah, it's just about using these tools to come into the body. Yeah,
I
it's a big part of my work,
Yeah.
and when I work, like especially one-on-one with clients, I'm helping them to figure out what their body needs to be able to open to sex or be able to open to intimacy. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that beautiful to listen to you, because I'm realizing that as you sit and just feel into what you need, it's easier to go through the day, and then also in the partnership or even with children to say what you need. Because often we get stressed and then we get, no, you need to be quiet before. No, it's actually like, maybe I just pull back and take a bath and let you play for a little bit. For example, when it comes to parenting or in sexuality as well. There are so many things that it just came to my mind. It's such a big spectrum, yeah, to
It
talk
is.
about, because you do this also on a daily basis, right? Those, drop in
Embodiment
and
work.
doing the movements, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm human, and some days I don't prioritize like having a practice,
No,
but
yeah.
most days I will, and I notice the difference when
Mm,
I give myself that time in the morning. But for me, it's like it gets to this point of just having that awareness, like when I'm here working for a few hours, it's like noticing when my body needs to get up and stretch and move, and or when it's just like really honoring and listening to what my body needs and not
yeah.
pushing through that anymore. Yeah.
And I find that really good, because I do that too, where I just like shake it off or dance it and then just like let my whole body shake, and you get rid of so much stress, right? It's so much
Mm,
stress and just gets released. It doesn't need to be like talked through or whatever, like, right? Over analyzed or something. You just shake it off, you're back on your body, you feel so much happier, and you can flow from there. It's so much easier also to connect with your partner or your children or your friends and be present.
totally. Like even at the start of this week, I realized that I had a day where I just felt like really tired and really frustrated. And, I
Mm.
went out in the morning, and then I ended up coming home and I had like a 2 hour nap in the day. Like I am almost 35 weeks pregnant. So my body's
Needed.
just like slow down, must rest. But yeah, I was like, I had this thing. It was just like it dropped in. It was just like you need to ground. You're so ungrounded. I've been in my head. I've been in my. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And
Mm.
my body was holding on to all of these like feelings. It actually just needed to, like it needed me to just be in my body and give it some attention and release some of this energy. So I went into the yard and I was like, cool. I'll listen to that. And I just spent 20 minutes just grounding my energy in. And then as soon as I dropped in and I dropped into the earth, I just had I could just ended up having a big cry. And I was like, that's just what I needed. I was just holding on to all of this stress in my body. And I just needed to meet that with some love and give that some expression. And after I had a big cry and I grounded, I was like, oh, I feel great now. It's like a
Mm.
new human.
Yes. Um, I'm wondering, I have so many questions. So, two things come to mind for me. So, one is sometimes I have this thing, and I'm sure many people can relate, where I get nervous connecting with a man because I'm wondering whether it's going to be good, right? It's going to be like good sex or a good thing. So, what does that mean? I know, right? It's a personal preference. And then as a second thing, which is kind of like unrelated, because I feel like it's easy to please me, but for some people that do not experience orgasms, what they can maybe do to open up. Well, although you said already it's not the goal to have, but I can imagine that some people might be struggling with this or feel a bit closed off on what they can do to maybe opening up to that.
Mhm. I think there can be many reasons why people are struggling to orgasm, or they have some sort of sexual dysfunction. For women, I think it's this feeling of unsafety. Like I've had women that have come to my events and stuff, and afterwards have come up and they've been in their 40s or 50s, and they've said they've never experienced an orgasm before. And I'm, whoa, didn't even know this was a thing, that people could live that many years and not experience orgasm. And then like I've had a chat to some of these women, and sometimes when it just gets to the intensity and that intensity is building, it doesn't feel safe for them to be in that. It's like too scary. So they just sort of come out of their body. So yeah, I think that there's maybe some trauma and something in their body that's not making them feel safe, or maybe they're just not connecting with people that know how to actually like create the safety and hold that space for them and meet them on that emotional or heart level. They perhaps like need to practice some meditation and getting out of their mind, because when our mind's just got that constant stream of thoughts, then it's taking us out of our body. When we've got trauma, we're holding on to trauma. When we're in a fear response, when our sympathetic nervous system is activated, or we're in a freeze response, then our body's like contracted and in fear, and so we can't really experience a great deal of pleasure when we're in that state. So I'd say working on like regulating their nervous system, learning how to actually feel relaxed in their whole body, because that's when we can experience pleasure. Pleasure's not something that we give and receive. Pleasure's something that we experience, and it's a nervous system experience. So our nervous system has to feel calm. We have to be in that parasympathetic, in that rest and digest state. So we need to feel relaxed. And like you mentioned before, sometimes I feel a little anxious when I'm connecting with someone for the first time. And anxiety can be like experienced as fear in the body as well. So what do you need to be able to regulate and move that anxiety? Perhaps sometimes it's just actually just giving that a voice. So hey, I'm just noticing that there's a little bit of nerve or anxiety arising, because I really feel this connection with you, and I guess there's this part of me that is hoping that it's going to go somewhere, or there's this expectation, or there's this desire, and I'm a little bit afraid that it's not going to be met, or whatever's happening. Because I think when we drop into our vulnerability, or we give our fears or our anxiety a voice, literally just speaking them or speaking what we feel shame about can just dissipate it. And especially when the other person's just like, like, thanks for speaking that. I actually feel really nervous too. And or like, I can see why you feel nervous. Like, that's normal, validates you in that.
That's true. Often I override it and then just like go with it. What I feel like I need sometimes is to just slow down. Can we just slow down right now?
Yeah. And
So
if you don't feel comfortable to speak like to it, like such as, I'm feeling anxious right now, can you just ask for what you need? Like perhaps if this is like you're about to have sex, you can go, oh, before we have sex, is it okay if we just cuddle for a little bit? And co-regulate with them. So regulating means like calming the nervous system. So any sort of non-sexual embrace or touch will really help you, especially if like neither of you are triggered or activated, can really help you, calm your nervous system as well. But doing like just watching your breath and making like breathe, focusing on your exhale and making that a little longer than your inhale can really help to just calm those nerves a little bit. I also think that some women can only orgasm a certain way, and that's because that the pleasure pathway is like really strong in that sense. And so what we really need to do is we need to instead of just going straight to that position or going straight to that same old way that you would orgasm, it's like, can you start to slowly explore other positions and and try to build a pleasure pathway in that way. So it's like, rather than focusing on orgasm being the goal, can you just slow down and feel the sensation? And it's like, it's about, for me, it's about slowing down, and it's about associating different sensations as pleasurable. And like, it's like bringing your arousal, like, let's just say, you know, maybe you used to have really like like your nipples are an erotic zone, but maybe you've breastfed 3 kids and now your nipples feel numb even though you're not breastfeeding. So it's like, when you're having sex and you're feeling a lot of arousal and pleasure in your body, can you slowly just start to like bring a hand to your breast and just like almost start to just like associate that as like with the arousal? Does that make sense?
I noticed actually a lot of healing that I've done just through breast massages and just the feeling around it. You associate a lot of that through breastfeeding and children, and there's like, your body is still yours. It's still also, you know, it can also be, like a place of for your arousal. So it's not just that anymore. But if we have kids, we not just associate them breastfeeding, but also the stress sometimes that comes with it, right? The sleepless nights, the being there for them, meeting them. So there's a lot of things that you let go of as well when you reconnect, new ways with that. That's really beautiful.
Totally. And you know, I think a lot, like, you know, breastfeeding is really essential. Like, it's, you know, it's one of the most essential things. And people feel wrong because there's women that breastfeed and then they start feeling aroused because someone's, you know, sucking on their nipple. Duh, like, of course there's going to be arousal, but they shut that down and they're like, that's wrong. This is my child breastfeeding. And of course, that is going to like turn into a numb spot. There's going to be no arousal there if you don't give it permission.
Yeah. Which is so beautiful. What you said earlier, there's just the lack of communication and for it to be okay, right? Because you're like, should I? No.
And like, also just taboo. Like, I was reading in a book somewhere the other week that there was a lady that called up like a breastfeeding hotline. I think this was over in the US. And she was sharing around the fact that she was, you know, there was arousal that was created when she was breastfeeding. And that person on the other line of that hotline dobbed her into the police. You know, like, how ridiculous is that? Like, and this is why it's been shut down, because we've been told that our sexuality is shameful and that our desires and our arousal is shameful.
When it's really
when
not.
We're doing something, and we're doing something completely normal, like breastfeeding. Like, we're not touching our baby and, like, you know, like in a sexual way. It's like we're just doing something that's completely normal. And it's normal to feel arousal.
There's so much pleasure and arousal, like just in everyday life. I find I actually had an orgasm once running. So I was running and I haven't been running for a while, and I was so looking forward to it. I was like, oh my God, this feels amazing. And I was running around this corner. As I came around the corner, the sun just hit myself, and that was just the thing on top that I didn't expect. I thought, oh my fucking God, just like running around town, just orgasming around. But I feel like orgasms, it's kind of like sexuality, I find, right? You stay vulnerable with what it is that you need, and you ask for that to be met. So I find if you are in life living that too, life can actually become orgasmic. So when I was doing a fast, for example, I'm like, no, I'm not gonna eat all of these things that come my way right now. I'm just gonna go home, make my salad. And I felt like just having a big bath, because it was a long day. I ate my salad, and then still that just all felt orgasmic because I was meeting my needs, right? So I think it's probably not the same, but there's a similarity, I feel like, in sexuality and just the way you live your life when it comes to opening up and being aware of your needs.
We haven't been taught that we can actually just build arousal and sexual energy in our body by literally just bringing our attention and our breath or some touch to our body. We don't need to use like hard, vigorous stimulation, like friction-based, you know, stimulation to build arousal. We can build arousal in a completely different way, which is literally just bringing our full attention to our genitals or a part of our body, and breathing into that and opening and moving the energy.
So it's not like you don't have to wait for it, or you don't have to like I'm too tired to connect. Like, you know, when I think about relationships, you could just, if you wanted to and it felt right, yeah, tap into that
It's
and
just a willingness to be with
open
what
it.
is, and
Yeah.
letting go of even the goal of having pleasure. You know, like I truly believe that pleasure and that type of bliss and the almost orgasmic state, that is our natural state. Like
Yeah.
that is like how we like that is how we're meant to feel. But it's because we have been conditioned to need to feel good all the time. And if you don't feel happy and good all the time, then there's something wrong with you. And so we deny everything else. We deny the pain, we deny the anxiety, and we put on the like confident mask. We deny everything else that we're feeling. And of course, like, you know, if you're not willing to go into that and feel the depths of your pain, you're not going to be able to feel the depths of your pleasure either.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. It relates. And I'm thinking of cosmic, what is it? Orgasmic births as well. I heard about, because you're about to give birth too.
Yeah.
I hope it's
Yeah.
gonna be.
Orgasmic birth is something that I've been looking into for many years. Yeah, it it's just like it just ignited my interest from the first moment I heard it, because orgasmic birth is just about that. It's about, let's stop labeling a sensation as good or bad or pleasurable or painful, and just notice that a sensation, and if it's intense, whether that's intensely painful or pleasurable, it's really calling our focus inward. And can we come to that, and can we breathe and see what it like wants to gift us when we're not resisting it or attaching to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So an orgasmic birth is not necessarily like a pain-free birth, or it doesn't mean you're going to orgasm while you give birth. It's just about, can you be with what is, and yeah, go on a journey of like opening through that sensation rather than contracting and being like, no, I don't want to feel that, or like, this was really good, let's attach to this and we need more of that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like every practice helps, right? Every time feeling your feelings, every time shaking off and dancing in your body, every time you voice it to your partner, like every little thing just helps build up for big, let's say big events, like then being intimate with someone, or you know, giving having an orgasmic birth. Ah, yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah,
I'm
it is.
wondering, is there anything else you would like to share? I think that was actually like an amazing point to make, but is there anything else you would like to share before we have to wrap it up
Hmm.
that you've learned or
Hmm.
important?
Yeah, I think like the thing that's coming through is just to prioritize your pleasure. Like if there was
Mm,
one last thing that I want to leave you with, it's just like, and again, like I said at the start, I'm not talking about like having to self pleasure every day and get yourself off. I'm talking about like, can you just, when you notice that you're not fully in your body, or you're in your mind and your stress or whatever, can you just bring your attention back into your body and back into the sensations? What can you see? What can you hear? What can you feel? Yeah, what can you taste? What does your body need? And prioritizing what makes you feel good.
mm,
Yeah, we forget that, prioritizing what actually brings this aliveness, this feeling of joy and aliveness into our life.
yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. I think that was rich and juicy what we talked about. We talked about lots of things. I'm so glad you came and we could have this conversation.
Thank
Um,
you. And if there's any women listening and they're like, oh, I really want to come on this journey and learn more about
yes.
sexual alchemy and pleasure and all of that, I am creating a course at the moment. It was supposed to be done by now, but you know, things are going a little slower because I've been sick and I'm pregnant. But in the next week or two, that will be available. And it's just a self-paced course. It's only going to be $397. It's going to have 6 modules, all with like videos and audios and different practices. And so it's a real journey of like slowly coming into the body, creating that safety in the body, learning how trauma imprints the body, how it's expressed. And it's like a real, you know, deep journey in like what's the word I'm looking for? It's like it's a journey of you becoming curious of what your relationship is to your body and your sexuality, liberating yourself from shame, finding that sexual confidence, and then exploring your sexual energy and exploring these different aspects of your sex as well.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
What's the best way to get in contact with you there? Through Facebook?
Yeah. So Facebook. So if you're watching this, you can just click on my profile and send me a message and add me. Definitely send me a message if you're going to add me, just because you might get lost in the hundreds of ads that I get. Or you can look me up on Instagram. I'm Sacred Embodiment, all one word. That's my business name. My website's a little out of date at the moment. I'm working on updating that, but that's www.sacredembodiment.com.au. And yeah, when my course is finished, I will send you a link and you can pop that in your group if you like.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Awesome. And I'll give you a discount code for any of the ladies watching as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. That's exciting.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming and good luck. And I hope everything does go as planned and as you intended to do with your baby and for the last couple of weeks and the birth and beyond. And thank you so much for coming here.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.